Ross, take one.
Hi, my name's Ross. I like to learn things, I like to make things, and I like to have fun. I'm interested in what interests other people, so I much prefer to ask someone what they love to do rather than what they do for work, because I believe that that gives you a more valuable insight into the person. I'm an amateur furniture designer and maker, and I believe that form follows function, but that creativity needs to be bold. And that's kind of my approach to most things in my life.
So Ross, besides the creating and making of things, what else do you love to do?
Well, that's probably one of my favorite questions, because I am a self-described hobbyist. I collect hobbies. I like to try things that interest me. So at the moment, I'm busy teaching myself calligraphy with a parallel pen. I'm trying out some graffiti in the backyard, and still pushing the archery as often as I can. Not the most practical thing to do, but when the time allows for it, that's something that I like to do to kind of center myself, yeah.
What's something small that brings you joy?
Still mornings before going to work, like leaving the house, because I have to be at work quite early, open up the factory at like 7 a.m. So leaving the house, taking a few seconds, looking at the mountain, appreciating the stillness, listening to a couple of birds, seeing some if I'm lucky, and then starting the day.
So do you have like morning rituals? Do you have like coffee or tea, or is it?
The mornings for me, it's more just a rush to get dressed and ready to get to work. My ritual kind of only starts after I've reversed a couple of trucks into the road, and it's usually a really big cup of coffee. And my morning hasn't started until I've had that, specifically from a mocha pot, because as far as I'm concerned, it's the most elite way to make coffee, yeah.
Cool. Who are you when no one is watching?
That's a good question. I'm 36 now, and I think that I'm more myself than I've ever been. So I'm confident that I am the same person when no one's watching, because it's just about honesty, more with myself than about other people. So if I believe that I can achieve that, then yeah, I think I'm very much the same when I'm alone.
Do you think it's taken you a while to get to that realization?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, a lot of stuff goes through your mind before you become, I don't know, as centered as I feel now. You go through a lot of like turmoil and turbulence and trying to please people or present in a way that you think you should or is expected of you. So yeah, it definitely has been a journey, but it's something that I try to carry forward every day, and it's just to be the most authentic version of myself every time, showing up for myself, obviously without kind of imposing too much on anyone.
And then what's something about you that doesn't match how the way you look?
I think I've always been perceived as someone who is quite mischievous, and that was definitely true at a time. But I think that that's maybe just more, I don't know, reminiscent of a past time. You know, at the moment I'm very much kind of straight shooting in terms of early to bed, very little drinking, no smoking. So yeah, I think people may assume based on how I look, and I think specifically because of the hair, that I maybe just do a lot of things that I don't.
And what's the sort of biggest misconception about yourself that you've learned this year? Maybe there's a sort of thought pattern that you had about yourself that you've recently realized is not true.
When you start life and you're quite naive, or specifically for me, as like a younger man, I was a lot more open and giving of myself and kind. And I think that over time, I'm kind of leaning into the stereotype of just becoming like a grumpy older person. But it's actually realizing that I just have more firm boundaries, and I have expectations of people, especially people that I love. So I think a misconception that I have about myself is that I'm easygoing still. But, you know, you continue to grow. Isn't, you know, definitely not perfect. So, you know, still trying to be the master of my emotions, especially as it relates to maybe being frustrated with circumstances or with other people. And so I have to always kind of humble myself and know that there's still growing to be done.
Lastly, when do you feel most like yourself?
Loud music, headphones or speakers. Typically that would be like at the gym, so lifting heavy weights, just in my own zone, no distractions. Yeah, kind of getting all the pent-up energy released. I mean, the loud music also goes across, it's when I'm practicing any of the hobbies that I've mentioned. So whether I'm spray painting or doing calligraphy or doing archery, music's always a part of those hobbies. So I don't think that's a coincidence. I lean towards things that I can do while I'm listening to music. And getting into that kind of zone just separates you from all the busyness, and it creates, despite maybe the high tempo or the volume, it creates a stillness, and that's when I feel the most myself.